Okay. Good morning, everybody in Israel. Good night, everybody in America. Bezrat Hashem, everybody in between. We started a brand new lesson yesterday, an amazing lesson, a unique lesson. And what we're really trying to get to is, why do we feel lacking? And how do we fill that lack? Often, especially in this generation, we fill it with drugs, substances, music, clubs, dangerous sexual activity, and the list goes on and on. A lot of things that are very destructive that often people don't even recover from. We've lost so many people even recently to drug overdoses. And, it's chaval, it's very, very sad. And to be honest, if I didn't find Hashem, if I didn't find Rabbi Nachman, chas v'sholom, but there's a good chance I could be counted amongst those people. And what we're going to learn today is what is the root of that lacking, and why is it so destructive when you don't fill it with the good, when you don't fill it with the ruach of the tzaddik, and what ends up happening as a result if you fill it with the other type of ruach. And it's going to come and bring understanding to where a lot of the darkness in our life comes from, and also how we can draw light into that place instead. As a quick recap for everybody, what we've said so far is like this. The first chidush of this Torah, the first novelty of this 8th Torah of Likutey Moharan, is that Rabbi Nachman is teaching us that breathing is very, very important. And that specifically when a Jew krechs, when he goes, and he makes a kind of like, so what ends up happening is he draws down a ruach, he draws down a life force when he does that, he draws down an energy. And depending on his mindset, depending on what he's connected to at that moment, he either draws down a positive energy or he draws down a negative life force. And whatever that life force is, it renews him. So if he draws down a positive life force, he literally renews his world in a good way. But if he draws down a negative life force, he destroys his own personal world, because everybody is an olam katan, everybody is a small world in and of themselves. And Rabbi Nachman teaches that we need to know from where that we need to draw our ruach from. That we need to draw a ruach chaim, the ruach, the life force of life, of true spiritual life. We receive it from the tzaddik of the generation. We receive it from the spiritual master of the door. And the reason why it's so beneficial to receive his ruach is because his ruach is the ruach Elokim, merachefet apanei hamayim, the very famous pasuk at the beginning of the Torah, that when the world and the universe was in a state of chaos, tohu vavohu, but the hope and the life came from the fact that there was a unique spiritual life force that was hovering over the water. Rabbi Nachman teaches that there is no water, like the sages say, outside of the Torah. And what is the ruach of Elokim that's hovering over this water? What is the source of hope in the darkness? It is the ruach of the tzaddik, because the ruach of the tzaddik is the bechina of Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the Mashiach. Like the Zohar teaches, that just like Moshe was the first redeemer, he's going to be the final redeemer. And it's taught by the Hasidic masters that even though the Mashiach will be the son of David, he will come from the tribe of Yehuda. At the same time, that's only his goof, that's only his physical makeup, that's only his charisma and his personality, his ability to interact and to draw people close. However, the soul, the teachings, the wisdom which he has, the rachamim, the empathy which he has, is coming from Moshe Rabbeinu himself. That's the ruach of Elokim that's hovering over the water. And because the tzaddik is always attached to the water, just like Moshe's name means that he's drawn from the water. Not that he was drawn one time from the water, but that every moment he is drawing from that water. he has never departed from the Torah itself. And as a result of that, all of his ruach is good ruach. It gives you life force, it gives you joy, it gives you emunah, it gives you faith. And this is what renews reality, and this is what's going to renew creation as well. B'mirav Yameinu, in the times of Mashiach, there's a ruach again that's going to, just like now it's like tohu vohu, that we're in a state of chaos, that everybody feels that their life is chaotic, that obviously we could see the collective life of humanity at this point is very chaotic, with a global virus that has taken over the world. Obviously, if you're Jewish, with the rise of anti-Semitism, which is so blatant and so crazy, not just in Israel. And you have, even in Israel now, that in the past, you had things coming from outside of the land into the land, but now you have even uprising within the land. We have no government here, the list goes on and on. It's Bamas Tohu Vohu. But the Torah teaches that in these moments, you really need to know, you need to internalize in your heart, the Ruach of Elokim Merachefet Al Panei Hamayim, that there is a Ruach of Mashiach that hovers over the water, B'davka, in the times of chaos. And this is what we need to draw in, and this is what we need to connect to. We do that by krechs. We do that by through hikashrut tzaddik. And when we do that, then this tzaddik, the ish asher ruach bo, that like Moshe Rabbeinu was taught about Yoshua ben Nun, that he comes from Ephraim, he comes from Yosef a tzaddik, that what makes him the tzaddik is that the ruach is inside of him. And specifically that he knows the ruach of every individual. So there's something I didn't say yesterday that I want to say right now before we move on with the Torah. And that is an important klal. There's an important rule spiritually. That is that there is, according to the Arizal, and obviously it's clear from Rabbi Nachman's teachings, there is a tzaddik that's called a neshama klalit, a nefesh klalit, a all-encompassing soul. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was talking about the Jewish people, he said, "Am I their mother?" And even though he was saying it, so to speak, in a rhetorical way, or even in a disparaging way, according to the Hasidic masters, he really meant, "I'm their mother." Because according to the Arizal, Moshe Rabbeinu is the collective soul of the Jewish people. And that's why it ended up being that 600,000 people came from him ultimately, because he is the root soul of the Jewish people. And it also says, according to Chazal, that Moshe is equal to all the Jewish people. What's the reason he's equal to all the Jewish people? Because he is the root soul of the Jewish people, meaning that everyone is a spark of Moshe. Everyone is a spark of the tzaddik. Everyone is a spark of Mashiach. And this is the reason why it's so beneficial to be attached to the tzaddik, because there is no healing, there is no wholeness except from, according to Chassidut, according to Kabbalah, the root of an entity. Whatever the root of an entity is, that's what brings it wholeness. So the whole reason that there's illness is because a person is not connected to his root, is not connected to his source. This is why when a person reconnects to Hashem, reconnects to spirituality, he automatically starts to feel a lightness. He starts to feel a joy. He starts to feel an excitement, a newness to his life, because he's really reconnecting to his source. And Rabbi Nachman makes it very clear in the fourth Torah, Likutey Moharan, that all suffering comes when the events that take place in our life, the circumstances that play out, are not being connected back to its root. So therefore, what is the most important thing, says Rabbi Nachman, for every Jew? That we need to reconnect to the root of our soul. Just like the ray of a sun draws its life force from the sun itself, so too we have a tzaddik. We have a nefesh klalit. We have an all-encompassing soul. We need to draw down his ruach because he's our root. And that's the reason when we learn his teachings, we feel alive. We feel we feel home. Like when I open the Likutey Moharan and I read it, I feel like I'm home, just like when I'm in Israel. What's the reason that you could feel home just by reading the teachings of a tzaddik? Because that's really the wisdom at the root of your soul. So this is the main yesod I wanted to get out from there. Now we're going to move forward to the Torah. And we're going to say like this: where is this ruach coming from? We know that there's, so to speak, four directions, that there could be wind blowing. Is there a specific direction that this ruach comes from? And does that give us any clarity about the quality of this ruach? Yes. Because it says in Masechet Brachot, the first Masechet of the Gemara, in Daf Gimel Amud Bet, that when David HaMelech, King David, the Mashiach Sikenu, that when he went to sleep at night, he would set an alarm. And actually, the Gemara learns out from this, it's a good idea to set an alarm. It's funny because now, obviously, everybody has an alarm. But that was the Chiddush of the Gemara 2,000 years ago, that it's a good idea to have an alarm set, not to just trust yourself that you're going to be able to get up. And we see because David HaMelech, King David, he set an alarm. What was the alarm that he set? He had a harp that he used to play. And this harp actually played on its own at nighttime. How did it play on its own? Because where he lived and the way his apartment was set up, his house or his kingdom was set up, there would be a wind that would blow in at nighttime at a specific time at night. That would wake him up at Chatzot. That would wake him up at midnight. And then he would get up and he would pray and he would learn. He would compose the songs that would ultimately become Tehillim. And the Gemara says there, Ruach Tzifonit, the northern wind, Hamnashevet Bekinor, Shel David. It would blow on the harp of David. Okay? So we see that where is this Ruach coming from? The Ruach of the Tzaddik. The Ruach which is blowing on the water, which is connected to the Torah, which is connected to the source of all life, which is the Torah itself. It's coming from the north. Why is that important? Because the harp of David, according to the Zohar, had 5 strings. Who cares? Because it's Keneged Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Where else do we see the number 5? There are 5 books of the Torah. Meaning to say like this, we just said before that what makes the tzaddik of the generation, that he is the root soul of the Jewish people. What gives him the koach to draw down ruach to every single Jew, to know what every Jew needs in order to be able to draw life force and joy and energy and revitalization? It comes from the fact that he is davik to the Torah. He's so attached to the Torah. Where do we see that with David HaMelech, the tzaddik of that generation? So we see it by way of the fact that the Zohar says that the harp that was hanging over his bed had 5 strings, which was connected the 5 books of the Torah, meaning that he was always with that instrument, that harp that he was playing was derived from the Torah itself. And at nighttime when he was sleeping, meaning in a time of exile, in a time of galut, in a time of destruction, in a time of chaos of his people, he would have his harp and it would play from the northern wind that would come and would play with those 5 strings. He would draw down the life force of the 5 books of the Torah at nighttime bedavka. And that's why when he woke up afterwards, his military commander and advisor would come in and say that the people need your help now. And he would then have the advice and he would have the koach that they need because he drew it from the Torah itself. And the northern wind would come in and he would blow that harp, meaning that the northern wind would come and blow on the water, like that happened in the beginning of creation. Because this northern wind, and this is the essence of the lesson today. Because the word tzafon, north, also is the same exact word for tzafun, which means hidden. Because the ruach of a person, the life force of a person is always initially hidden. Now, why is this important? Because it teaches us a very deep lesson about life. And that is that the essence of a person only comes out when he goes through difficulties in his life, when he goes through struggles in his life. I'm staying by my wife's sister's home, and she right now is unfortunately going through some issues with depression and anxiety, and she never had any of this in her life. And now after having Baruch Hashem her 4th kid, she started to have it. And obviously besides the genetic aspect or the physiological aspect of depression that often women feel sometimes postpartum after giving birth, there obviously is a spiritual underpinning here. And I spoke to her obviously about Hibodedut. And she was talking to me about why would Hashem do this to me? So I told her that I had heard before that one of the reasons why Hashem causes difficulties in a person's life is specifically because he wants that person to talk to him, because he wants to hear from that person specifically. Now, where does that conversation or where does that relationship come from? It comes from the northern wind. And the northern wind only comes in a person's difficulty at darkness, at nighttime, when a person's sleeping, when he's struggling in his life. And that's what comes in and wakes him up. According to the Torah, there's another pasuk in the Torah that says that evil or negativity in the world comes from the north. So it's interesting because the ruach of Mashiach comes from the north, and at the same time, all negativity in the world comes from the north. And according to the sages of our generation, they say that Mashiach already lives, he already exists, he has not revealed himself yet, and he's going to come from the north of Israel. He's going to come from the north. Now, what's the secret of this? Meaning that he's going to come from the darkness itself. He's going to come from the chaos of the world itself. He's going to come from the secular world itself and come and heal the world. Why? Because this very deep ruach, the life force of the Jewish people, which is the Mashiach, which is the tzaddik of the generation, he only is revealed through the darkness itself. And as a result of that, the ruach comes out. The life force of a person comes out. Even me, all of the resources that I thank Hashem for, that Hashem gave me inside of myself, those only revealed themselves when there was darkness in my life. And they continue to. Even in Eretz Yisrael, I need Hashem so much here. You could see how clearly that you need faith here. So Rabbi Nachman says, what's faith? It's tefillah. What's the ikar of tefillah according to Rabbi Nachman? Hibodedut. So instead of doing that normal hour that I do every day, I'm closer to 2 hours now, maybe more. When would I ever do 2 hours of hibodedut a day if not for difficulties? So that inner life force, because Rabbi Nachman says, what's the life force of a Jew? It's his prayer. So where is that life force coming from? Where is it deriving from? Where is it pumping in my heart from? It's coming from the trials. It's coming from the lackings. From the lacking itself comes the life force. And this is the paradox of spirituality. Kitzafon chaser, because the north is always lacking. So we see that the lacking itself is the cause for blessing. There's so many times in my hibodedut, I say to Hashem, why did you give me such a lacking? I see other people, they seem to be content with their life. They seem to be happy. And you've given me so much, and yet I always feel this gnawing, aching feeling that I'm lacking. My whole life, I was always like that. I still have it. And on the one hand, it causes me tremendous pain. And on the other hand, it's constantly pushing me. It's like a gym trainer that's always pushing me to grow. Because I never feel whole, I'm always moving towards wholeness. And as a result of that, Baruch Hashem, I've been able to grow so much and to help other people grow as well. But it's all coming from Tzafon, from the north, from Tzafun, from the hiddenness, that it's from the darkness itself, the place that evil comes from. That's the same place that the Ruach is coming from. Because it says in Bava Batra, Ki Tzafon chaser, the north is always lacking. And this lacking is in the heart itself. Because it said in the pasuk in Tehillim, Lamed Zayin, Perik, Lamed Zayin, pasuk Dalet, Yiten lecha mishalot libecha, that Hashem should give to you the requests that are coming from your heart. Where do requests come from? Requests only come from lackings. Where are those lackings? They're in the heart. And also the pasuk says there as well, in Tehillim, this is Perik Chaf, Pasuk Vav, Yimalei Hashem kol mishalotecha, that Hashem should fill all the lackings, all of your lackings. Where are they coming from? Again, they're coming from your heart. The Ikar Ruach Chaim, but the essence of your life force, the essence of your energy, the essence of renewal also comes from the heart. And it's bedafka because of the lacking itself. The lacking itself is the cause of the Ruach Elokim that's hovering over the water. It comes in the time of Tohu Vavohu, of chaos. Because it says in the Tikkuni Zohar, Kuhu Shayafin Mitnahagin Batar Liba, that all of the organs of the body, they are all following the heart, because the heart is like the king to all the organs of the body. That even though on paper we usually think of the mind, so to speak, as the king of the body, in truth, the power and the koach of the body comes from the heart. The emotions are drawn from the heart. The source of free will comes from the heart. So wherever the heart goes, that's where the mind goes, that's where the body goes. The Zohar is saying that the king of the goof is the heart. Kama dat amar, like it says in Yechezkel, El asher yeshama haruach lelechet, that wherever the heart is, that's where the ruach goes. Wherever the ruach goes, that's where the people go after. So too, the tzaddik of the generation, whoever that is, and the Mashiach eventually, we're all going to run after him. Why are we going to run after him? Because he's the ruach. He's coming from the north. He's the heart of the Jewish people. And because he's the heart of the Jewish people, we're all going to follow after him, just like all the organs of the body follow after the heart. And this also gives a quality about Mashiach, a hint about Mashiach, that is that he represents the heart of the Jewish people, and as opposed to the mind of the Jewish people. That usually when we think about who the Mashiach is going to be, he's going to be someone who's going to be the Talmid Chacham. He's going to be the person that he's so engrossed in the Torah, and he has such levels of understanding and spirituality. And while that's going to be true, his ikr is not going to be that. His essence is going to be the tremendous capacity of his heart, the capacity of his heart to know, the capacity of his heart to feel, the capacity of his heart to draw others. That's all coming from the heart. Because the ruach is in the heart. And lackings, they come from the departure of ruach. Meaning, why does a person feel lacking in his life? It comes from the ruach. It's not in his heart. The ruach has left his heart. And as a result of the energy or the life force, the root of a person's soul, it's leaving that person's heart. Because of that, he feels lacking. Shemekomo balev, that it's in the place of its heart. And therefore, it's expelling the chisarun of the lev. Meaning that when a person reconnects to that ruach of Elokim that's drawn over the water, when he attaches himself to the tzaddik of the generation, when he krechs, when he breathes out, but he's not doing it from despair, he's doing it from hope, he's doing it from love, he's doing it from faith, because he's so connected to the tzaddik, then as a result of that, his ruach comes in and it expels all of the darkness from the heart, all of the lackings from the heart, and it fills it. And therefore, like when a person fills that lacking, that is through the quality of the ruach. That Hashem will fill the lackings of your heart. Specifically, it's going to fill it, because it's going to fill the heart. And therefore, the Jewish people, the Jewish people, they receive their ruach hachayim from the Torah. They receive their life force from the Torah itself. And that's why the Jewish people are called the North. That it says that the nations of the world, they are plotting against the foundation of the world, us, and they are taking advice on the North, or on the hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? It's the Jewish people. Why are we called the hidden ones? Because on the one side, nobody sees our true greatness. Nobody sees the fact that we are actually the epicenter. We are the locus of creation. We are the heart of the world. And on the other hand, everything that takes place in this world is happening as an outpouring of what's taking place in the heart. And because we are the Jewish people, because we are the heart, that's the reason the Jewish people always feel this sense of lacking. Because the heart feels lacking, the North always has lacking. However, also it's from that place that the Ruach of Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim, that the Ruach of Hashem is hovering over the water. It's from that very same place. Ach harashayim. But now we need to know the opposite, that we know that there is a famous principle in Kabbalah and the Torah, in Chassidut, that Hashem made one opposite the other, meaning that just like there's a ruach, a good life force, a good energy to draw from breath, there also is the opposite, because a person might have the question, where do people who are not connected to the Torah, where are they receiving their life force from? Because we know that 99.9% of the world, they don't know what the Torah is, or at least they don't genuinely know what it is. And they're certainly not actively drawing life force from it, or krachsing while having devekut, an attachment with the tzaddik of the generation. So where are they getting their life force from? He says, Rashayim, people who are disconnected from Hashem, hadovrim al tzaddik atak v'gavavavuz, and specifically those people in the Jewish community that they speak out against the tzaddik, that they say you don't need to have attachment to a tzaddik, you don't need to follow the advice of a tzaddik, you don't need to get counsel with someone who knows more than you. You don't need to reconnect to the root of your soul. You can simply make your own decisions, live your own life, take your own counsel. And those people who they speak out and they say, you don't need Rabbi Nachman. Where are they getting their own ruach from? Where are they filling their lackings from? However, you should know, Rabbi Nachman says, Sheyesh Rav de Klipa, as opposed to the Rav of Kedusha, as opposed to the Rav of the generation, there's also the Rav, the rabbi, the sage, the leader of the other side, of the Klipa. The Klipa is the force of negativity and spirituality, just like in a fruit, if you want to eat a banana. So there's delicious fruit on the inside. It's sweet, it's good for you, it's nutritious, beautiful. That's like the tzaddik of the generation. But outside of the tzaddik, the fruit, you always have to be confronted by a peel. That peel is not good for you. It does not have nutrition. It does not have vitamins. And not only that, it's bad for you. It's only served, though, to serve as the casing for the peel for the fruit itself, so that when a person is ready, when he has earned it, when he has merited it, he can draw close to the tzaddik. But he first has to be confronted by those people who oppose the tzaddik. That's the reason why a person, often when he wants to connect to Rabbi Nachman or any real tzaddik, he gets opposition from people around him. He gets opposition even from himself, that he may not feel the need or the desire to want to draw close. He may feel that there are things that the tzaddik says that he feels are contradictory to what his beliefs are. So all of those are actually the peel. However, there's also an actual person or people in the generation that they're like the Rav de Klipa. They are telling you not to connect, that Breslov is Hashem, Rabbi Nachman is Hashem, real tzaddikim are Hashem, Chassidut is Hashem, all of those things. They're all the peel, they're all the Rav de Klipa. They're the concept of Esav, Yaakov's brother. Because it said about Esav that when Yaakov and Esav, they met each other at the end of, so to speak, their journeys in their life. They went separate ways. In the beginning, they were very similar. They hung out together. But what ended up happening is Yaakov dwelled in tents, meaning that he was trying to grow spiritually. And Esav was hunting in the field, meaning that he was filling himself up with physicality. And they decided to go two separate ways. Yaakov went after spirituality. Esav went after physicality. And towards the end of their lives, or at the end of their journeys, they met each other. And they had a showdown. And they explained to each other what they had accumulated after all this time. And Esav said to Yaakov famously, Yesh li Rav, I have so much. There is to me so much. Rabbi Nachman says, here's a chiddush. When he said, Yesh li Rav, I have so much, he wasn't just saying, I have so much. He was saying, Yesh li Rav, there is to me a Rav. There is to me a rabbi. There is to me a tzaddik, meaning that I'm the Rav. I'm the tzaddik. I'm the leader of the generation. That person, through his boldness, through his brazenness, he's going to take a leadership of the generation. And he's going to say that I'm the rabbi of the generation. Yesh li Rav. V'hu bechinat alufei Esav. Like it says about that there were many tribal leaders of Esav, Alufe Esav, Kamosh Tirgum Unkelis. And what does the main translation of the Torah of 2,000 years ago say about what it means that there's tribal leaders of Esav, Alufe Esav? He explains Rav Ravei Esav, that there's many Ravs of Esav, Bechinat Rav de Klipa, meaning there's many rabbis of the Klipa. Umehem mekablin rashayim ruach, and when they receive ruach, hu bechinat ruach atuma. When you receive ruach from them, you're receiving the ruach of impurity. Bechinat ruach sarah. This is the northern wind. We know there's a prophet. His name is Yechezkel, and he had a crazy meditation session, and he ended up experiencing what's called the Merkava. This is a very, very deep thing in Kabbalah. A point of meditation where he experienced, so to speak, the inner workings of spirituality, how Hashem operates the universe. And what he saw there was three klipas, that there were three barriers to experiencing godliness. And then there was a fourth klipa, which is called klipa noga, which actually has both good and bad in it. And in another time, we're going to explain what that means for us practically. But in this lesson, there was a northern wind, and that northern wind was very intense. It was very strong. And what we're learning is that northern wind comes from impurity. It comes from the source of negativity in the world. And that's where these people that they're drawing their ruach, not from the Rav of the Tzaddik, where they're getting their ruach from. And that's the reason why a Jew, specifically Bedavka, you see that there's no Jew who's parv. You never see that a Jew who's not connected to good, just so to speak, lives a basic part of life. Oftentimes, those Jewish people, that they're not connected to spirituality, they're not connected to the Torah, they go the whole other way. They end up experiencing very high degrees of depression and anxiety, lack of meaning in their life, issues with finances, just tremendous nisayon, difficulties, challenges. And it's very unusual that a Jew, so to speak, lives like a middling life. He often goes one way extreme or the other way extreme. He's either drawing from the Ruach of Elohim, he's either drawing from the Torah, and then obviously that Ruach is very good for him and good for his family, good for his friends, or he's drawing his Ruach from negativity, and it draws him towards mental health issues, physical health issues, substance abuse, and the list goes on and on and on. Like the pasuk says, "Hen Esav achi ish se'ir," that it said about Esav that he was a hairy man. What does that mean? Because in Kabbalah, the concept of being hairy is the concept of dinim, or judgments. We know that Yaakov, he was smooth. That was the reason why Yaakov didn't want to talk to his father Yitzchak and to receive blessings from it, because he thought that his father would feel him. And as a result of feeling him, he would know it was Yaakov. So his mother said, let's put on goat hair onto your body. And that way, when he feels you, he'll think it's Esav, because Esav was very hairy. Okay. What does this mean on a deeper level? We know that when the Mashiach comes, we said that he is going to have the soul of Moshe, and he's going to have the body of David. Because David represents the tikkun of Esav. David represents the rectification of Esav. Esav was very drawn after physicality. David is also, but he uses it for good. And what's inside of him is the soul of Moshe. And we know that Moshe is also the soul of Yaakov Avinu, that they're very, very connected. The most connected of any other soul to Moshe is the soul of Yaakov Avinu, because Moshe represents the neshama of Yaakov. So this also fits in well with the lesson. Why? Because we said that when Mashiach comes, he comes from the darkness itself. He comes from the difficulties himself. So too, who does Mashiach express himself through? Not, so to speak, the most chashuv, holiest people, but he's going to come from the tribe of Yehuda. He's going to come from a person who he's drawn tremendously after physicality, like David HaMelech, and yet he chooses to connect to spirituality, meaning he's coming from the least likely expected situation. He comes from the north, just like the Ruach comes from the heart. And so too, this ruach is very intense in its time, because the concept of the northern wind, the concept of this wind that's from the other side, it's a strong wind, but the wind blows and then it goes away. Shehu gadobi shato. It's strong only in its time. It's interesting as well, because if you'll notice that when taiva comes, when the desires come for physicality, they're very intense, but only for a period of time. And if you simply just sit and wait, you'll notice that desire goes away. Why? Because it's drawing from the ruach of the other side. And that ruach, even though it's very, very, very intense, it's only for a period of time and it goes away. So if you don't indulge in it, it just goes. Same with sadness, same with anxiety. If you don't ruminate on the difficulty itself and you just keep moving and you don't meditate on it, you'll often see what happens, it goes away. But if you invest yourself in it, then that strong wind continues to stay. And therefore the Pasuk says in Tehillim that all of the oppressors, all of the enemies, they blow into them. Specifically, Bedavka, he says, Yafiach, they blow. Because their whole essence is to be very strong, but only momentarily. And that's the reason why over the course of Jewish history, you have seen that the Jewish people have stayed, that we have existed, that we have never perished. And at the same time, we never, so to speak, became the leaders of society. We never became the world power, because we represent the Ruach of good. That is something which is not overpowering, but which is always existing. It's the Ruach of the North. It's the Ruach of the heart. It's hidden. The opposite of that is the Ruach of the nations of the world, that they take power, but even though it's so intense and it's so extreme and it's so overwhelming, it's only for a very short period of time. Like Mark Twain spoke about the Romans and the Greeks, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, how they all rose up like a star, like a phoenix, and they took over the whole world like a blazing inferno, like the Germans, like the Italians, like the Russians. But just as fast as they come onto the scene and they take over, so too just as fast they burn out, because they are all possessed by this northern wind, but not from the good, from the other side. That it's like a raging wind on the ocean, that it blows very intensely, but then it passes away. Shehuga do bishato, it's strong in its time. Ach she'ein lo kiyum klal, but in the end, there is no existence to this thing. Just like also the force of the Yetzer Hara, the part of us that draws us to negativity, ultimately with the coming of Mashiach, is also going to go away. That the only reason we have this is to give us free will, only to give us free choice, because if not for this force of negativity, which brings us to negative choices in our life, we would never have free will. However, when Mashiach comes, there's no need for free will anymore. There's no need for free choice anymore. Because in the place of da'at, in the place of real knowing, you don't need to choose. So in the end, negativity always goes away. That's why Shlomo Melech, he used to go through trials and tribulations in his life, and he would have a ring on his finger, and very famously it said, "This too shall pass," which obviously everybody's heard about this. They don't know where it's from. Why did that give him such chizuk? Why did it give it such encouragement? It doesn't just mean that things are gonna move on. They're gonna. He was trying to console himself. It's because it's a reality. It's a mitzvah that anything negative in the world can only be temporary. It's going to blow intensely and then it's going to depart. Like the Pasuk says, that Hashem is going to repay his enemies to their face and they are going to depart. And the word for repay is shalem, meaning it's the lashon of shleimut achisaron, that he is going to fill the lacking, meaning that how does Hashem deal with the enemies of the Jewish people? He deals with them with erech apayim. He deals with them with extended breath. he does not instantaneously come after the enemies of the Jewish people. He allows them, so to speak, to oppress us. And once they have reached the height of oppression, he deals with them. And so too in our lives. Why does Hashem allow people to do negative things? He allows them to do it because ultimately he wants that they should transform and come back, that they should have an elevation, that they should have a change in their life, that they should have a paradigm shift, they should grow, they should do teshuvah. But ultimately, if they don't, there is going to be consequences at the end. So too with nations, the same thing takes place. But the language of he repays them that he uses there is shalem l'sunav. He fills up that which is lacking. That's how he gets rid of it, meaning with the ruach. And why did it say to their panav, to their face? Ki panav hu bechinat ruach, because the face is the concept of ruach. Like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, karat panehem antambam, that Hashem afflicts them to their face. Zeh hachotem, that's the concept of the nose, because we know in the Gemara in Masechet Yevamot, kuf chaf, amud aleph, shehu bechinat ruach, that it says there that what is the essential feature of a person's face? How can we recognize a person? Interestingly, it comes from the nose. And there are halachic implications from this. Because let's say a person is buried, but his nose dissolves or goes away. So as a result of that, he's no longer able to be distinguished as a person who he was. Only when a person has his nose can you say it's that person. That's how you distinguish a person. It's from his nose. What's the reason? Because a person is his ruach, a person is his life force, a person is his energy. So if he doesn't have his nose, so to speak, he has lost the distinguishing character of his face. Now it's interesting because elsewhere Rabbi Nachman says, how do we express our chotem? How do we experience our spiritual nose? We do that by talking to Hashem. We do that through prayer. So to speak, the essence of a person is our prayer to Hashem. And that's why when a Jew does not talk to Hashem, he feels lacking. He feels a tremendous lack of life force. He feels a tremendous lack of purpose in his life. And all of a sudden, a person does his first hour of Hippolytu, he feels his life change. Why? Because that is his experience of his chotem, of his nose, of his essential self. And when that's not there, you cannot distinguish that person. He doesn't know himself. Like it said about Hashem and Adam Arishon, the first man, Yipach Ba'pav, Hashem blew into his nose Nishmat Chaim, the soul of life, the breath of life. Kol Asher Nishmat Ruach Chaim Ba'pav, and everybody that he has Nishmat Chaim, it's coming from the nose. But in the end, those people who they are connected to negativity, he is going to abandon them. Because it's only strong for a period of time. But in the end, it's going to go away. This is the concept of erech apayim to the Rishayim. That is, that Hashem, like we said, he has a stance of extended breath with them. Because the ruach of the breath, it is the concept of extended breath or patience. That in the end, for all of the negativity in our life, all of the struggles of our life, they are going to come to an end. And all of our enemies and all the oppressors of the Jewish people, they're also going to come to an end. It's not going to be forever. It's only for a period of time. But Yisrael, and that's why we're called Yisrael. Aniya Sorah, because we're afflicted by Sorah. Because Sorah means to be afflicted, but it also means hair. Because, so to speak, we're like Yaakov, that we're a chalak, we're like the smooth part of existence. And it's the hair that afflicts us. Because now they are under the control of Esav, that Esav is the predominant force in the world. Bechinat ruach sarah, which is the concept of the strong wind. However, however, by us reattaching and having the veikut and clinging to the real tzaddikim of the generation, the tzaddik of the door, we receive ruach chaim, and we have shleimut achisaron. We find the ruach of Elokim that's marachepet Al Pnei Hamayim, we find the Ruach of Hashem that was hidden in our hearts the whole time. And we find it expressed from the darkness itself, from Esav itself. It draws out Yaakov. And this is the beautiful part of the lesson. That is that nobody needs to find the tzaddik except when he's confronted by Esav. Nobody needs to and is able to experience their own personal redemption unless they go down into Mitzrayim, because there is no geula without galut. There is no redemption without exile. There is no light without darkness. So we, even though we do not want the darkness, we don't want the difficulty, we don't want the strong ruach of the other side. At the same time, that nighttime is what plays our harp. It's what plays the 5 strings of our Torah. It awakens our soul within us, and it brings a spiritual connection that we never had previous to that. And then we get to see the blessing and the beauty itself. And we see that the darkness itself is good. We see that the negativity itself is the predominant factor, like the sages teach that the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, is still an angel. He's still a Malach. And then we draw close to the tzaddik and the Rav of the generation. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we're going to learn what it is exactly that the tzaddik does to be able to draw in and to fill in all of the lackings that we have in our heart. Or maybe not tomorrow, but next week, because I think Ben Roberts is going to be teaching his next class. So Bezrat Hashem, everybody here should be attending that class to continue to grow and trying to connect to how Hashem is your friend, to grow in Hibodedut. Besides these classes, that is by far the most important thing that you can do on a daily basis, is to continue to work on, to internalize, to actualize this practice of Hibodedut, to practice and to pray with gratitude, to talk about those things that you're lacking in your heart, to ask Hashem that through the lacking itself to be able to find your Ruach of Elokim, that northern wind which is hidden within your heart, that it should draw out and you should have Geula in your personal lives and in the lives of the Jewish people. Should be soon for all of us. Does anybody have any questions before we sign off? Any questions? Take advantage. Questions lead to answers. No? Okay, so I'm going to make an announcement before you guys sign off. Baruch Hashem, I have a very exciting announcement to make. That is that we're going to have our first live class in Eretz Yisrael Bezrat Hashem this Sunday night. So that's going to be American time. It's going to be in the early afternoon, probably 1:30 p.m. It's going to be Sunday night in Israel at 8:30 p.m. in a city called Beitar. Bezrat Hashem, it's going to be for men and women. So I'm very, very excited to announce that Tzion has now spread out to the land of Israel, Tzion itself, Eretz Tzion. Bezrat Hashem, it's going to be successful. We'll be able to grow a chabura, a chevra here, and to continue to shine the light of the tzaddik throughout the world, and to hopefully bring that Ruach of Elokim out from the water in this time of Tohu Vavohu, in this time of difficulty for all of us. So if anybody's around Sunday, I highly encourage you to be there live in Israel if you're there, or if you're in America or somewhere else, that you tune in on Zoom, Bezrat Hashem. So everybody have an amazing, amazing day. If I don't see you again before Shabbat, have a Shabbat Shalom. And I'm looking forward to continuing this lesson with everybody. Thank you.